So in today's video, we are going to talk about one of the most important aspect of security, that is designing roles and permissions for data engineers. But before we start, let me tell you why this topic is really important for your career as a data engineer. So at some point, people will basically stop judging you on how fast you can design a data pipeline, or how fast you can develop a data pipeline, or how fast you can write some nice Spark or PySpark code or SQL code or Python code. Okay, at some point, people will basically start paying attention to questions like, can this person actually design access to data platform or data warehouse or the lake house in safe way. Okay, and can this person actually be able to understand who should be able to do what, and who should have access to which components in production, and if something goes wrong, do we actually trust this person's judgment around permissions? you know People will start basically paying attention to questions like this. So in system design interviews, or even in promotion discussions, these questions show up indirectly or sometimes directly as well. Okay, but if you can walk up to a whiteboard and calmly explain how you would control access for various different personas like business users, or data analysts, or data engineers, or data scientists, and also ETL jobs, for example, then you will suddenly sound like someone like who can own a data platform, or who can own entire component or entire project, not just like a guy who will build like data pipelines or write some code and everything. So in today's video, we are going to talk about something very practical. Okay, so in today's video, we are going to talk about designing roles and permissions for data engineers, or actually in data projects to be precise. So we'll talk about all these different components which are involved. We'll talk about personas, we'll talk about the groups, and we'll talk about roles, and we'll talk about permissions. So, of course, we have talked about the personas also in the previous video a little bit. But in this video, we will of course revise whatever we discussed in as part of the previous video, and we'll of course try to map these personas to the groups. Okay, and we'll try to design roles, and we'll try to build permission matrix. Yeah, and then we will actually turn that into a SQL code. We'll try to implement all these permission matrix or permission model, whatever we are going to discuss using the SQL. Okay. So basically, by the end of today's video, you will you will kind of have a mental model, and also some concrete SQL code, and also some concrete SQL code that you can use in your own project, and also in system design interviews, like when someone asks, how would you secure access to data warehouse or data platform or lake house or any kind of SQL database or any kind of stuff like that. So then probably by the end of this video, you'll be able to answer that questions, and also probably show them sample SQL queries as a solution. Okay, so let's start. Okay, but let me quickly recap, the three building blocks that we are going to talk about here. So you don't have to follow, or you don't have to watch my previous video. So let me quickly recap that. So let me quickly try to recap what does persona mean, and what does groups means, and what does roles means, right? So persona is basically just the type of user. Okay, persona means just a type of users in any company or organization. Now, what do I mean by type of users? Okay, it's not a technical thing. Actually, it's just a label. So, for example, business user, or BI developer, or a data analyst, or report developer, or data engineers, ETL jobs, or pipelines, data pipelines, or admins. So these are all different kind of personas that you normally get to see in data projects or in organizations, right? So that's about personas. But now, what is mean by groups, or what is mean by group actually? So even if we talk about in a group in a real world sense, group is basically collection of people, right? Group of people, or collection of people, or group of some things. So in this case, group is basically collection of people. Collection of people, or basically users in an organization. Okay, and then if you have to talk about roles, basically if you have to define roles, a role is basically a permission bundle inside a data warehouse or database or your lake house as well. So role is basically a permission bundle. Yeah, so role is basically your permission bundle inside your data warehouse or your lake house or database as well. So it's something like, for example, BI author can be a role, DE engineers group, DE engineers can be a role, or job writer can be role, platform admin can be role, business viewer can be role as well. And if you have to talk about groups, yeah, group is basically collection of people. And if you have to look at the sample groups, then GRP underscore business users is a group. GRP underscore BI analysts is a group of BI data analysts or BI developers or report developers. And GRP underscore data engineers is a group of data engineers, where in this group, like, there will be only data engineers present, hopefully. And then GRP underscore ETL jobs is a group of ETL jobs or a group of your data pipelines. And GRP underscore platform admins is a group of, yes, data platform admins. Yeah. So yeah, so you can actually think of it like this: humans or people or users and jobs belongs to groups. Yeah, so humans or jobs and people belong to groups. Yeah, so basically what we are saying is personas is basically type of users, right? So all these type of users or jobs belongs to groups, and then each group is assigned to one or more roles. Yeah, each group is assigned to one or more roles, and each role will have a specific permission. So each role will have a specific permission. So don't worry at all if you don't understand this. We are of course going to discuss this with examples and everything, so that it will be clear for you guys. But now let me define the personas we'll work with in a in a very realistic but simple setup. Okay, so let's talk about these personas that are here. Sorry, I just need to zoom in a little bit. Yeah, I hope it is clear to you now. So these are at least some of the personas that you get to see in real life data projects, right? So if you are a data engineer or data analyst or BI developer or report developer, then your colleagues or your peers will be basically one of these people, right? You might be working with the business users, who will give the requirements for you to build pipelines or dashboards and all that stuff. And then you might also be working with data analysts or BI report developers, and if you are and also data engineers, who will build data pipelines and stuff like that, and ETL jobs and pipelines, and admin people as well. So if you have to concretely talk about each character, then business user, what they kind of do is they will give requirements, and whatever the dashboards or reports BI analysts build, they will basically business users will basically read the dashboards and KPIs, right? So they will read the dashboards and KPIs to make the decisions. Yeah, so that's their main job. And then if you have to talk about BI and data analysts or report developers, so their main roles are example of the work they do is they mainly write SQL code and build some kind of reports and models and all that stuff, right? And if you have to talk about data engineers, yeah, then they are the people who build data pipelines, which can collect the data from different sources, transform, and then put it into storage and all that process. And of course, they will also manage schemas and all that stuff. And then if you have to talk about ETL jobs, automated ETL jobs or pipelines, so these are basically the automated ingestion and transformation jobs. Yeah, but these are not personas in itself, but the service accounts, but the users, but the user IDs which you'll use to run these jobs are basically the personas. Okay, and those are basically service accounts. Yeah, and then if you had to talk about admin, if we have to talk about admin, yeah, there are also people who manage, platform and the infrastructure and platform settings and migrations and all that stuff. So these are some of the personas you get to see in data teams. Okay, if you are a data analyst or data scientist or data engineer, then these might be some of the people that you will be working with on day-to-day basis, right? So that's our basically cast of characters. And then if your company has something called IAM, which means that identity and access management tool or something like that. So then in IAM, we'll basically have a groups like this. We'll have groups like GRP underscore business users. So so in GRP underscore business users, in this group we talked here we talked that group is collection of people or collection of users, right? So so if you have to guess in GRP business users who will be present, yes, you are right. So GRP underscore business users is basically a collection of or group for business users. Yeah. So we have to remember that. So GRP underscore business users is basically a group or collection of people who are business users. Yeah. And for GRP underscore BI analyst, it's a group of, BI or data analysts. And then same for data engineers and same for ETL jobs and same for platform admins as well. And then of course in the warehouse itself, we will define roles that match the type of access they need, right? So in warehouse we'll have roles like this. So for business users group, we'll obviously define we'll have some kind of roles like this. Yeah. And we'll have some kind of roles like this and for data engineers we'll have some kind of roles like DE underscore engineer or something like that, and same like this. So we'll have that kind of roles. And then but the one thing we need to remember is the whole trick is here, whole trick here is we actually don't give rights to individual users directly. So what we are saying is we actually don't give rights to individual users. No, we actually don't give rights to individual users directly. Rights to individual users directly, we won't do that. Okay, so remember that. So we will always try to link it like this. So we will always try to have some kind of personas, add them into groups. Okay, and then assign one or more roles to each group, and then assign permission and to that roles. Okay, so that's the mental model, or that's the best practice you have to remember. Okay, so now that's the structure we are going to design now. So this is basically the structure. Okay, so we have personas here, and then we have groups here, and then we have roles here, and then we also have permissions here, which is basically read access or read access or write access or insert or update or delete and create, or it can be more as well. Okay, so we'll have that kind of permissions here. So what we are saying is, for example, if there is, let's say, user 1, yeah, and user 2, user 3. If user 1 is data engineer, user 2 is data analyst, user 3 is a data scientist or BI developer, then we don't we normally don't give we normally don't give these kind of roles, or we don't assign roles to the individual users. So what we have to do is we have to add these users to the groups, relevant groups, and then for groups we have to assign the roles. Okay, and then roles will obviously have specific permissions. It can be read or write or update or insert or delete or drop, or it can be anything. Okay, so that is the cycle, or that is the flow that normally we follow in production grade systems. Yeah. But before we design the permissions, we need to be also clear about where the data actually lives, right? So obviously, if you remember, if you remember at the starting of the video, we talked about uh, we talked about designing access to data platform, data warehouse, and lake house, right? So it's all data related. So we should be actually, before designing all these permissions, we should be clear about where the data actually lives, right? So let's say we have a warehouse called analytics. Yeah, let's say we have a warehouse called analytics. Yeah, now underneath that, imagine that we have three schemas. Okay, we have staging schema, we have integrate schema, and we have reporting schema. Okay, and if we have to if I had to kind of define what does these schemas contain, then obviously each and every schema will have tables. But what does that tables correspond to? If I have to explain that, then basically, let's say that for this example sake, of staging schema is the place where raw ingested data lands. Yeah, and it can also be called raw schema or bronze schema or whatever. Okay, so but let's say that staging is the place where raw ingested data lands, and it's usually messy, right? Raw data is messy and close to close to source systems. It's very close to source systems. Yeah, yeah, and of course here it will have technical column names. So whatever the column names are present in the source, same column names might be mapped here as well in the schema. So here, if actually business people look at the staging schema where raw data is there, then it might not make these column names and everything might not make sense to them. Okay. So that's about staging schema, raw schema, bronze schema, if you're following medallion architecture and stuff like that. Yeah, and if you have to talk about integrate schema, okay, if you have to talk about integrate schema, then this is basically the intermediate layer. This is where like we clean and join and standardize or transform data, right? So this is where we do all that. Yeah, and of course this is more little bit little bit business friendly, but it's still mainly for engineers or power users. Okay, it's still mainly for engineers or power users. Yeah, and then if we have to talk about the reporting schema. Okay, if we have to talk about the reporting schema, and this is where we keep our final stable tables. Yeah, this is where we keep our final stable or modeled, it can be star schema or anything. Okay, this is where we keep our final stable or model tables, and from this is where dashboards and people like business users will actually use this data. Okay, so this is where from reporting schema, reporting schema is the place where dashboards and business users will basically consume the data, because here everything is a little bit more business friendly. Okay, in integrate step itself, you would have also applied some kind of business rules and stuff like that, so that data will get business friendly names and business computation by the time it reaches reporting schema. So now the whole question becomes, yeah. So now the whole question becomes, okay, for each role, how much power should they have in each of these schemas, right? For each role, okay, for each role which is present here, how much power should they have? Yeah, should they have in each of the schemas we are defining here? Let's try to understand what do I mean by that. Yeah, so let's actually let's build a simple permission matrix which explains all this. So this is the permission matrix I'm talking about, and this is really important. Yeah, yeah. So now let's try to understand for each role, okay, let's try to understand how much power should they have in each of these schemas. Okay, we have the schemas here. Yeah, and then we have the roles here. Let's try to understand who should get access to what. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about business user first. Okay, let's say there is a business user. Okay, let's say you are in a data team. Okay, normally you'll have a business user who will give the requirements to you, right? Basically to build pipeline or to build dashboard. Okay, and normally most of the time business users, they don't want to like develop any kind of pipelines or write code by themselves, right? Because they are not trained in that aspect. Yeah. So business users normally, what they want to do, business users, they want to see the metrics, they want to see the KPIs, and they want to see the reports or dashboards basically. And business users, they don't want to be debug the pipelines or write Spark code, or they won't be adjusting schemas and all that stuff, right? So that's why for them, okay, we actually don't give access to staging. We actually don't give them access to integrate, but we only give access to them to the reporting schema, and that also it will be only read access. Okay, because they won't be writing code, they won't be writing the data back to the tables, and they won't be doing anything. They just have to read the data, they just have to see the data, they just have to see the metrics, KPIs and reports, right? So that's why we don't give the business users access to staging where the raw data lands, or we don't give them access to integrate where we integrate the data, join or enrich or standardize or clean and apply business rules and all that stuff. We don't give them access to all this staging and integrate schemas. We only give them access to reporting schema. Yeah, we only give them access to reporting schema, and that too we only give them read only access. Yeah, they just have to read the data, they don't have to write back the data and all that stuff. So you can already observe, so this already protects us from that nightmare, right? That we talked about in the previous video, that what if data analyst or business user can drop the table or delete data from the table. So you can you can already see, if we give business user only read access, then they basically won't be able to run delete command. I mean, even if they are able to run the delete command, but it will just give them permission denied. It will just give them permission denied error, or basically access control exception, right? Because we are not giving them permission. And this is the concept that I was also talking about in the last video, which is POLP, which means that principle of least privilege. Yeah, principle of least privilege, one of the most important concepts in security, guys. Yeah, so here what principle of least privilege says is, yeah, we just give people access just to get their job done. Okay, we just give minimum access to the people just to get their job done, nothing more, nothing less. So here, since they want to just read metrics or KPIs from reporting schema, we'll only give them read only access, and we won't give them access to integrate and staging as well. Yeah, so we don't do that. So, and that's nice. Yeah. And of course, if we move on and talk about BI author, which is next in line. So BI author is basically a BI developer or data analyst. Yeah, a BI developer or report developer or data analyst is basically a little bit deeper. Most of the time here, if you remember, we talked like they write some SQL code and builds reports and models, right? So let's see accordingly. Let's see what kind of permissions we need to give, in different schemas to them. Okay. So yeah. So basically, BI author, they will write SQL code, they build dashboards, and sometimes materialize tables and all that stuff, right? So but for staging, we actually don't give them access at all. And then if you talk about integrate, this is maybe only read access. Yeah, because mostly they will build SQL or dashboards and everything in the reporting schema, right? So that's why, but they have to see what kind of data is available in integrate schema. So that's why we will give read only access to BI author. Okay, but we'll give read plus create views access or limited writes access. Okay, so yeah, and that's how principle of least privilege works for data analysts or BI or report developers. Okay, yeah, and remember, we are giving mainly BI author access to reporting schema, okay, which is read, okay, which is because they need to be able to read the data and create views, and in some cases might be able to, write into some kind of curated reporting tables as well, right? So that's why we give them some kind of limited rights access as well, some kind of like insert or update and ability to create views, that kind of access. But one thing again we need to remember is, I'm saying limited right. Okay, why I'm saying limited right is we can give them access to insert the data or update the data. Okay, but we can actually restrict them from deleting the data or dropping the tables. Yeah, yeah. So that's why I call it, limited rights. Yeah, remember that. And then if we talk about data engineer, okay, if we talk about data engineer, normally, if we talk about data engineer is basically responsible for making sure data moves correctly through all different layers, right? When I say all these different layers, here it's yeah, raw or staging layer, and then integrate, yeah, and then and then reporting layer, yeah. So basically, data engineer is responsible for making sure that data moves correctly through all layers, right? They build ingestion and they maintain transformations and fix schema issues, or and they also fix failure jobs or repair bad loads and all that stuff, right? So basically, they kind of need full read write access, because they may need to reload the data if any raw data is missing. They may, or some, if it has issues with the raw loads, then they may need to reload the data, and they may need to backfill the data if something is missing, and they may need to fix bad writes, bad ingests or partial writes. So that's why we will give them access to full access, read write access to staging schema. Yeah. So, and if we talk about integrate schema, here also we'll give them full read write access, because they need to maintain and correct the integrated tables as well, right? And if we talk about reporting, if we talk about reporting, in most cases we'll also give them read write access, but used carefully. They might need to repair some broken aggregations or backfill historical data, but here still this is mainly place for BI developers or data analysts, right? And of course various companies have different requirements, so DEs also will have read write, full read write here, but it should be used carefully. Yeah. Yeah. And then if we talk about job writer, which is basically for service accounts or ETL jobs or automated, data pipelines and stuff like that. So these are little bit strange in the sense, not super strange, but these are actually non-human persona. So these are not humans, right? So these are not humans. So in all other roles or in all other groups, you basically have users or personas. I mean, technically here service, you can also call service account as a user, but it's still your scheduler, your scheduler or orchestrator is running or using this role basically. So yeah, so these are actually non-human actors. If you talk about job writer, these are non-human actors, and each job usually has very narrow responsibility, and none of the jobs should have like all kind of responsibility, all different responsibilities. They should not, jobs should not be able to write to staging schema, and same job should not be able to write to integrate schema, and same job should not be able to write reporting schema. Okay, jobs should never have wide responsibility. Okay, so they should have narrow responsibilities. So remember that. Yeah, but but yeah, but the thing is, We give actually job writer only very specific rights, of course. For example, a job may only have to insert and maybe update some staging tables, but may not be able to delete the data and stuff like that. Okay, when we have to backfill or reload, you may still need some human intervention, or you might still have jobs, but mostly, okay, you just need to make sure that it's correct, right? And it might also have some read access on some lookup tables, right? So even in integrate, maybe some read access you might provide. Okay, and it usually have no access to yeah, or maybe this is incorrect. It also should have access, some kind of limited access to um, to the reporting schema as well. Okay, so but the thing is, you will have a different kind of job writer role. So here we are talking about single job writer role, but it can be split into multiple. Okay, it can be like stage it can be like stage job writer, and it can be like integrate job writer, yeah, and it can also be like reporting job writer as well. Yeah, yeah, something like that. Because that way, even if credentials leak or someone misconfigures it, then the damage is kind of limited. And then if you have to talk about the platform admin, which is a final role, yeah. So platform admins are also some of the key important roles, in the data platform, because platform admins are kind of are the break glass people. Okay, and they might be actually one or two trusted engineers or architects who will normally typically behave as a platform admins, or in some companies you might also get to have different platform admin team itself who will manage all the infrastructure and stuff like that. But but uh, but they will kind of get all kind of access, yeah. So they can manage schemas, they can create and drop objects, they can insert data, they can do migrations, and they can help recover from serious issues and all that stuff. So here they basically have full access, they basically have full access across all schemas. Integrate, full access, and reporting, full access as well, yeah. You can already see how this permission matrix is is just the principle of least privilege applied in a structured way, right? So that's why principle of least privilege is really important, because you want to restrict different people or different personas to do only their job. Okay, they should not be able to do what they're not supposed to do. Okay, remember that. And then moving on, actually, to the final part of the video, that is actually looking at the practical implementation. Okay, looking at the practical implementation in SQL. So let's actually understand how we can design or design this permission model or permission matrix using the SQL. Okay, so before that, let's understand, okay, one more time. So we have all these different roles. So we have all these different roles. So we need to create all these different roles in SQL, yeah. And then basically what we talked is, let me show you that, yeah. So we have roles here, okay. So what we'll basically do is, we have roles here, and then we have permissions here. So we'll try to assign roles permissions, and then in basically IAM or somewhere we'll try to add, we'll try to add assign groups with the specific roles, and then we need to add persons or people into the groups, right? So that is a workflow. But the first step is to create all these different roles. Okay, first step is to create different roles, yeah. So at this point, it's just a simple SQL query, yeah. And of course, the thing is, these SQL commands will of course vary depending on your implementation or specific product or vendor version of your warehouse or lakehouse. But this is kind of like generic SQL like way. Okay, but what we do is, first we create roles, and that is using this method. Okay, we just have to create roles, like it's a simple command which is create role command. Yeah, we just have to create role and then specify the role name here. Yeah, create role and role name, and then roles will be created. Okay, we are creating business business viewer role, and then we are creating BI author, data engineer, job writer, and platform admin. So, okay, we are creating all these 5 different roles. Yeah, and then let's say now the roles are created, but at this point these roles exist but they don't have any powers yet. Okay, so they don't have any powers yet in the sense, for example, let's say you are working in a company. Okay, so in each and every company you will of course get some kind of badge or ID cards, right? So imagine the ID card. Okay, what they normally do is they will create the ID card, but they also have to give some kind of access or permission to the ID card, when you swipe to enter into the building. So they have to still assign the permissions. Okay, so same like here. Okay, so here we just created the roles. Okay, we just created the roles, but they are basically powerless. They don't have any powers or permissions yet. So now what we have to do is, so we have the roles. Okay, we have the roles. Yeah, so now we have to map roles to different permissions. We have to map roles to different permissions as per our matrix that we talked here. Okay, so let's see how that looks like. So now let's see business users. Let's talk about business users. If we talk about business users here, yeah, business users should not have access to staging, should not have access to integrate, right? They should have access only to reporting, and that to read only access. So business users, they should have read only access to reporting schema. Let's see how that can be done. Okay, so now if you look at this command, okay, so what we are saying is we are granting the business users, yeah, usage on schema reporting. Okay, so now basically business users should be able to use this schema or see this schema, reporting schema, and that's it. And here if you see, we are not giving them access to stage or integrate schemas. Yeah, we are giving them access only to reporting schema, and that to read only access. Yeah, but the first command is basically just granting usage on schema reporting to business viewer. Okay, but then how do we actually give them the read access or select access? Okay, that is using the second command. So we have to use this command called grant select on all tables. Okay, select on all tables in schema reporting. So what we are saying is basically business user, okay, we are giving them select table access for all the tables present in reporting schema. Okay, so that is the main point. And then and similarly, if you have to talk about the BI authors, okay, they should have basically read only access to integrate. Yeah, read only access to integrate, and read plus create views or limited rights to reporting, right? No or very limited access to staging. Let's look at SQL queries for BI author. So BI author should not have access to they should not have access to staging. They should have access to integrate, yeah, and reporting schema. Yeah, yeah. So let's see. So what we have to do is we have to do 2 things. One is granting usage and one is granting actual permission. So we are giving them or granting them access usage on integrate. We are granting them usage on reporting, and then on integrate, if you look, okay, on integrate we only have to give them read only access, right? So that's why we are giving them only select on all tables access. Okay. But for on reporting schema, since they are the one who is going to develop reports and all that stuff, we actually need to give them kind of select access, insert access, update permission, and all that kind of stuff. And also we might have to give them also create view access to them on reporting schema as well. So that is one thing. And for data engineers, okay, for data engineers, since their main responsibility is to move data across all the different layers, we kind of give them, little bit full control over all these different layers. Okay, like delete, insert, update, select, insert, update, and delete. Okay, here we say delete, but you can of course restrict delete. Okay, maybe no deletes. Okay, but remember that they should have access, select, insert, and update access on staging schema, on integrate schema, and also on reporting schema, or at least some kind of controlled access on reporting schema. And remember guys, this is not the exact permission matrix or permission model that companies follow, but this kind of gives you like actually real world idea, or idea to actually how how to implement permissions in real projects. Okay, but of course it changes from company to company and scenario to scenario and team to team, and depending on the organizational structure and how the teams are structured and stuff like that. Yeah. And if we talk about job writer, we just have to give job writer access to staging schema and give insert and update, on staging tables. And remember, this is basically staging job writer. Okay, here we are not talking about like job writers for other schemas or layers. Yeah, so that is a main idea. That is the main idea I wanted to convey. And of course, I also wanted to say something else as well. That is okay. That is in the previous video, if you remember, we of course talked about this scary example, right? That is what if users, run delete or drop statements on this table, then what happens? Okay, so now let's try to understand whether we have solved this one in this particular video or not. Okay, so we actually told that data analysts often should not be able to, data analysts or business users should not be able to drop or delete data, especially the core reporting orders table or something like that, right? So what we can actually do is, even though now we have granted BI author delete access or write access as well, but we can revoke it. Okay, so and how do we revoke the access to some particular roles? Okay, let's look at that. So for revoking any kind of access, we have to write this revoke command and then mention what kind of permission we want to revoke. Okay, so we have to revoke delete on this particular table to this particular role. Okay, so then whenever we run this command, then basically even though whoever BI authors who have access, whoever BI personas or whoever BI users, whoever BI groups have access to this role, they will then be not able to delete the table. Okay, and of course you can also revoke drop permission and all the stuff like that. Okay, so yeah, that is the main idea. Okay, but of course, again, if you still want them to give freedom to experiment, and maybe you can create a sandbox schema, and then you can actually grant users to BI author on sandbox schema and grant them all kind of permissions or test schema or anything like that. Okay, but not on main production reporting schemas. Okay. Yeah, so that is a main example. Okay, now if someone with the BI author role, okay, if someone with the BI author role, if they try to run this command, okay, if someone with BI author role try to run this command, it basically fails. Okay, but if they try to run this, then it basically succeeds, and that's fine. Okay, that's allowed and that's fine. Okay, they can basically experiment how much ever they want in sandbox, but the real orders table should stay safe. Okay. And again, I'm saying this is just a sample permission model and permission matrix which gives some kind of information or some kind of idea to you, I hope. But at the same time, in real companies, it can get even more complex. Okay, now here we haven't even involved all these different kind of environments and stuff like that. We have different roles, that's fine, but we also have different environments like dev environment and test environment and production or pre-prod, UAT or hotfix, different environments. Now how do you map the users roles as per environments and stuff like that? Of course, you have to make a matrix and try to map and do all that stuff. Okay, remember that, and that's really important. Okay, and before we close, I want to give you one simple exercise that can make a real difference in your own company or own environment as well. Okay. And I really suggest you to follow this, follow or do this exercise at your company. Yeah. Yeah. So I actually want you to, after this video, I want you to take a piece of paper and actually write down the schemas. Okay, write down the schemas or layers you have in your company. Yeah, it might be raw schema, or it might be staging schema, it might be bronze, silver or gold schemas, or it might be integrate schema, something else, whatever the schema. Okay, as per your layers, write down the schemas. Okay, as per the layered architecture, and write down your schemas, and also actually list your real personas. List personas in your company, write down schemas, and then personas are various different users like BI developers or data engineers or data analysts, who are actually using your data platform. Okay, write it down. Yeah, and admins, it can be anyone. Yeah, and the next what you'll do is sketch a matrix similar to what we did here. Okay. Yeah, so do that. So try to sketch a matrix similar to what we just did for each person, and what they should have, like what kind of access they should have in each and every layer, like whether they should have read access, write access, or or whatever, like insert, update, delete, select, or only select, insert, or however you want. Okay, and also write down that reason. Okay. And what you will do is, so write down schemas and layers, write down personas, define the matrix, and then at the end, what you will do is actually try to compare that to what actually exists on your current company or current data platform. Okay. Compare it against your current data platform or data warehouse or lake house, or it can also be databases as well. Okay, compare it. So if you discover that half of the company has like full access, or most of the people have like admin access or broader access, that's actually very useful insight already, because they should not not everyone supposed to have root user or super user or admin access. Okay. So, I mean, you don't have to fix everything in a single day, obviously. Even proposing like even one single change, okay, is also literally good. Even if you propose like one single change, like let's say, for example, if you discovered that business user also has some kind of admin access, delete access, and then if you kind of try to control it, as per our permission matrix or SQL queries, using the SQL queries that we just talked about, then that's a huge win already. Okay, that's a good step. So, and of course, it will obviously take time for you to do this matrix thing, and then actually implement it, and then communicate with all these different teams, and communicate with stakeholders and get permissions and all that stuff. But I actually suggest you really go and try to do that, and that will save you from a lot of headaches, especially with the security incidents and production incidents and users accidentally dropping or deleting the data or tables and all that stuff. Okay, so yeah, So in this video, we mainly focused on SQL and roles and permission model and matrix, which is good. That's a huge step. But in the next video, we will actually take the we will actually look at the human side of security. Okay. Now even if you design all this stuff, okay. Now even if you design all this stuff, but humans are the main security concern. Okay. So let's actually understand, yeah, let's actually try to discuss more on the human side of the security. Okay. And actually let's try to understand the psychology of the people and how people actually behave under pressure, and how credentials can get leaked by accidents, and how to protect the data while it's moving or sitting in your data platform and all that stuff like that. So if you want to keep building if you want to keep building that I can design safe systems muzzle, and definitely watch that one as well, and stay tuned for that, and that one as well. And I hope you have learned something from this video, and if you do, then please like this video and share it with your colleagues or friends, or whoever your learning partners. Okay. And yeah, please subscribe to the channel and comment down. Actually, I'm really interested to hear how what other kind of topics that you would want to come up with. I would definitely do that, and and also comment your thoughts on this particular video. Yeah. So, and thank you for watching, and we'll come back to you with one more video. Until then, stay tuned and see you, and good night. Bye bye.